Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Work at Home Rockstar podcast. Excited for today's guest. She is the founder and CEO of Energetic Solutions, and she helps leaders and CEOs make their dent in the world in their own way so that they can get back to alignment with their unique ability. Very excited to be rocking out today with Sheevaun Moran. Hey, you ready to rock?
Let's do it.
Right on. We always start off here on a good note. So tell me a story of success in your business that we can be inspired by.
Oh gosh, I don't know. Success is a really interesting term, I think. It's a moving target, and I think we get maybe trapped into what success means, but I would say putting on an event that somebody was trying to steal from me, and it was my first big event, large audience that I was putting on together myself. And then I was out of the country doing speaking, and then one of the people tried to come in and steal the entire event. So that was kind of fascinating. And then they showed up at the event and tried to hijack the event. So yeah, that was pretty fascinating. And it ended up, launching a whole different side of our business. So after going through all of that challenge and all of the problems, we had a bunch of people drop out and all these, weird things. Events are weird things, right? And we ended up having, I don't know, like 100 people, which was still great, not what we intended, but we ended up having 100 people, and it launched $1 million year. So the people in the audience didn't seem like that was the right kind of circumstance, but it really launched something amazing, and taught me about how to harness an event and keep people who are trying to hijack it out of your space.
Yeah, that would be a little difficult, I imagine. You'd be fighting against people, right?
Yeah, I don't fight. I just really, we just revised it, and it just totally worked in our favor because of the way I handle things. I'm not a fighter. I'm just like, okay, well, let's make this work. And, the rest is their karma. And so we turned it into something amazing.
Wow, right on. So, I mean, the next question I was going to ask you is about the bad note, but it almost seems like that's kind of wrapped up in that first
Well,
answer.
that's kind of like a bad note. The interesting thing about that is it really got us to change our model, in that we don't have a whole lot of speakers at our event, maybe one or two. And there's a lot of there's a certain amount of people that are welcome into the room that are really working on themselves and ready for a next level. And so we've gotten very, it's given us the ability to be super precious. So I think that event was a good catalyst. And the person who does our AV for that for my event is from then still, 12 years later, still does our events. So
Wow.
it's pretty cool.
Wow. So what was the event supposed to be, and what did it turn into?
It was supposed to be a multi-speaker event with, nobody was supposed to sell. And this one person who was trying to steal the event, he was, agreed upon as a speaker. And the contract stated that he wasn't supposed to sell, and he started selling. I mean, there were a lot of moving parts in between, of people and places and timeline and website not working, and, all kinds of things. Bad deal with the hotel, lots of weird things. But good gosh, it just turned out so amazing. I mean, it was just like, oh, yeah, I mean, I live and teach this, so why wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I think when you're confident about what you're doing and who you are, it just seems to work itself out, right?
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, and the right people were in the room. I mean, the other people who weren't in the room, I still get every once in a while, I get a little ping like, "Oh man, I wish I'd have made that event. I know that was super special." I'd heard a lot from people like that.
So you mentioned we a few times. So let's talk a little bit about the band. Like, who is it that you have around you that, make the magic happen?
At that time, I had a an assistant who I found her when I was speaking at a college, or she found me when I was speaking at a college, I should say. And she said, I want to do what you do. And I said, well, great. Then you're going to have to follow me everywhere because I can't just teach you how to do this because it's a little complicated. And so she was with me for 15 years. And we did amazing work together. Thank God for her, or else I would have my picture on nothing. She was, I don't like to put my picture on stuff, but apparently that's necessary.
Yep.
And uh but we grew that from, I already had a business, working by then, but she was a piece of the glue. And so we had outsourced people at the time. And now we have, we have 10 or 12 people that are all over the world, a couple in our physical office. And I'm a systems geek. I started out in high school as a coder. So I think in codes and systems. So, I try to find people who like that because it's easier. Especially when you're looking to do websites and all of the stuff around marketing, because marketing takes a unique touch and texture.
Wow, cool. Yeah, I'm a coder as well. I have a degree in computer science. I used to work as a programmer for a long time. So yeah,
I did for a short time.
yeah. So when you say systems geek, yeah, me too. I pretty much try to systemize everything.
Yeah.
Right on. So now how do you sort of like figure out whether someone's right for your team or not?
Oh gosh, we have a weird system. So before I had my own business, before I did my own gig, I helped 4 companies get built and sold. And so I got really good at hiring people. And I have this, and I kind of customize it each time, but I have this wacky way of asking people, before they even get on an interview. So I have them, I don't know, tell me something amazing about life. And if they don't respond to that, it's like, then you're not my person. You're not the right person. I mean, so we have like 8 questions that people go through that if they're just trying to look and send the resume and get the interview, they're not for me. We're a super high touch organization. So if somebody opts into any of our stuff, we actually reach back out and say, hey, how are ya? I mean, that's not like most companies.
No, it isn't.
And so I always want people who um, maybe they have an entrepreneurial spirit, but they don't want to work for themselves. And they just really want to do cool things to help the world be a better place. And yet they want systems. They like systems too.
Well, and I couldn't help but notice you didn't mention anything about the actual skill set that they have. So it's really about attitude for you then.
It's about energy and commitment and willingness to, like, let's see what happens. Because, that first assistant I told you about, I said to her, if you could do nothing else in the things that we've talked about, what would it be? And she said, oh, I want to do your calendar. And I was like, okay, tell me why. And she said, it's like Tetris to me. And I thought, I suck at my calendar.
Yeah.
And as the company grew and, we changed and I tried to take the calendar away, she said, never take that calendar away. That is my joyful place.
Right on.
And so it's not something like a skill set she had before, but we found that in her and brought that out. And that's what I tend to do with folks.
Isn't it cool how there are certain parts of your business that you might dread, but other people love it and it's their like gift zone, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's how I helped 4 companies get built and sold. It's like, listen, I'm not good at that, so I need people.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of people, and I mean, you've done events as well. How do you, I mean, in today's day and age, it's kind of easy to find an audience. Like there's lots of social media and places where you can find people, but how do you create fans out of that audience? How do you make that distinction?
I don't look for fans. I look for so our model is physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, relational, financial. And I use a template of kind of alternative medicine, energy medicine, to actually help people in their business and grow their business. And it's pretty different. It's really different. It works pretty magically. And so I speak to people where nobody else is speaking to them. I'm going to say words like, that aren't going to be used in other places. So there are a lot of people who speak about energy, but those people may not have built and sold businesses. They for sure probably didn't, grow up as a coder. They for sure probably didn't, create a healing modality that there's a school for. So I have a unique space, and I really just look for communicating rather than look for them to be fans. I look to communicate to somebody who has those pieces in their wheelhouse, and they're saying, God, I've been looking for somebody like you, but I didn't know you existed. You seem really weird, but normal, but coder, but like grounded, but you don't make sense. And yet you're getting all these results. And so it takes a while, a little bit of a while, for people to say, oh, you are totally my person. Usually what happens though is people know right away when they hear my voice or they see me. They're just like, oh, you have something that I need, and they don't know what it is, and then we have to figure it out. So I write all of our content that goes out there. Actually, I've tried to outsource
Wow.
it, but regardless, I end up writing it. And so I write it for 2 companies, and all the blog posts, even if somebody, puts a spin on it, I revise it so it has my texture on it. And it's really about calling into somebody's heart and soul to say, is there something that you want of all of these things to work together in your favor? And they know me, and they're going to stick around. We tend to have people on our list for one of my newer assistants. She was saying, I don't understand about how this email thing, I did this, you told me to do this crazy email. So I gave her permission to do this crazy email. She said, I have an idea about an email that one of your products is like crack. And I was like, okay, go for it. She thought I was going to tell her no. And I was like, go for it. Just go for it. Well, we got a whole bunch of sales from it. And she's like, but wait a minute. Like, what? That doesn't make sense. I said, because we're about how authentic can you be so that people can take what they say in their head and say, oh, I'm saying that too. And so what it does is it helps people. And so she was having a conversation with the operations gal, and she was saying, well, why does this work, and why? And so I know I'm rambling a bit, but there's a point to this, y'all, is that it's about not the instant hit. It's really about the journey, and people hang out with us for the journey. And so the operations girl was explaining to her sometimes people are on the journey, with our work and emails and blog and stuff like that for a while before they're going to raise their hand. And she said, look at that new client who's been around for 15, she was on our list for 15 years. All of a sudden she became a client, right? So you never know.
Well, and I think that differentiates you a lot, because I mean, we do tend to hear that, people's attention span is shortening, and so people are all about trying to make a quick hit, right? Whereas
Yeah,
you're more focused on the opposite. You're more focused on building that relationship over the long term, right?
that's right. It's really about, what is it that I have that somebody is here for that I can help serve them with, whether it's free or all the way up to whether it's, something that is super custom to them. And each of the products along the way have been built, all of our audios. I've 28 audios. I have 17 books, and each of them are for a unique type of person. They may not be for every person. And they were because I responded to the audience, kind of actually interestingly, reluctantly. I actually didn't want to do any audios. I actually didn't want to write any books, but they're there now.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Wow. And I would assume that, like, everything you put out there, even if it isn't necessarily trying to make a sale immediately, it is trying to connect with people, though, right? Everything that you do, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have uh, anything we put out there is about how can we educate somebody or help them transform or have an epiphany that they couldn't have had anywhere else.
Right on. And so you do the majority of that then, but you now do have a few people that help you with the writing as well.
No, I do all the writing now. I mean,
Wow.
we've had writers over the years, and I end up taking it back and just reshaping what they write. So I was like, I can do this really fast. I'm a fast writer. I'm good at this. I love it. We just crafted a program that instead of doing Zoom or any of those things, it's kind of a little baby mastermind, little baby one, and it's based upon something kind of a little missive every day that I've written to them for 60 days about how to prosper. And people are like making bank.
Wow. Now, what about, okay, so let's move into that making bank. So we have to
Yeah.
keep the hat full. We have to figure out how to make sure there's more coming in than going out. So how do you make sure that your cash flow is in the positive?
Hi, it's Marc Mawhinney from Natural Born Coaches, and I want to give two very big thumbs up to Tim Melanson and his Creative Crew agency. I have been using them for a long time, and I am 100% happy. They get the job done right, they're fast, and they let me focus on my business. I don't have to worry about anything. So again, I want to give them two very big thumbs up. I have no problem recommending them. I don't give testimonials for everyone because my name is attached to it, but I gladly do so for Tim and the Creative Crew agency. So use them, you won't regret it, and good luck.
Know my numbers, just like any smart business person. I'll always be speaking to the solution. I'm always doing something new. I'm always looking at what the market is doing, and I love marketing. So I went from coding and super introverted, still that, but to being like, okay, I'd rather learn sales and marketing because that's where the transformation happens. Even though I didn't know that's exactly what I was doing, I was just like, that seems more important to me. And so I learned sales and marketing, and still learn sales and marketing. I study it every day.
Wow.
And it's about what is it that the world is going through that I can address in a way that is going to help some people, really shift themselves.
Nice. We have a similar journey. I started off as a coder and then learned sales and marketing as well, because I figured that's the place where everything was. I mean, you can't even sell your ideas in a board meeting as a programmer if you don't have sales skills. It's
That's
it's
right.
uh, super useful for anything. So where did you go to learn all that?
What do you mean go?
Like, did you learn it online? Did you learn it on yourself? Was it trial and error? Like, what was your process for
Oh,
learning
I
sales
was,
and marketing?
well, with coding, I mean, I got in trouble in school. My parents put me in a special coding school. So I'm starting to get in trouble because I'd already finished all my stuff and they didn't know what to do with me because I lived in a kind of, small town. And so like, we're going to put you in this. And I was kind of good at it. And then, I went to college, but I was like, yeah, I don't know, something isn't quite working. It's great information, but I really just started reading how people wrote and what they were saying and how they were saying things. And so I remember one of the first companies I worked for when I came to California, there were 12 of us when I started, and our mission was to grow it. We grew it, we sold it to Rubbermaid for, a couple $100 million. And so I started out as, I don't know, maybe an assistant or something, didn't know where to start. I was just like, yeah, sure, that sounds like small enough. I don't want to do big stuff. And then they said, well, we need somebody to write our technical stuff. And I thought, all right, I'll do that. Let's do that. And it was difficult and dry. And then he said, well, would you like to do marketing with that too? And I'm like, yeah, let's do that. And, so then I started doing all the marketing brochures and all of that. And I thought, oh, I'm just crushing it in sales over here with the marketing. And so had a really good eye and, really studied different people. I don't remember who I studied, but I definitely studied a lot of the way magazines were written and a lot of, stuff out in the world. And then I got into, when I had my own business, there was this thing called, the ancient days. I don't know his name. His name's Ken McCarthy. Anyway, he had an event. I never went to the event, but I met him and went to small events. And he talked about, how do you speak to people? How do you speak to the audience? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, but I'm doing that. I was doing that before. So it was translatable. And it just made logical sense to me that the other, hard corporate marketing is actually doable over here. You just have to learn to translate it better.
Wow. So what would you say would be the difference between marketing and sales?
Well, sales is marketing is a message. Marketing is, speaking to somebody, and selling is saying, "Hey, do you want it?" I'm trying to oversimplify, but yeah.
Yeah.
Most people don't like sales. Most people. I just did a whole big little series on that. Big little series on how people don't like to sell because of all of these weird beliefs that just don't make sense. And it's like you sell all the time. And so if you're not willing to ask for money, then you have a problem.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is that we all have that experience, these bad experiences with salespeople, and then we think that that's what a salesperson is. But really, that's not a salesperson. That's
I don't
someone who's
know
terrible at
that
their
we
job.
have them. I think those are translated through family, and then we decide that that's how they are. I think the outside world puts that on us, and then we adopt that and accept that, and then all of a sudden we become that and live that when we really haven't had a whole lot of experience of that. And the really weird thing is how if you can't be a good salesperson if you don't know how to buy. I love to buy stuff. If somebody sells stuff, if somebody's a good salesperson, I'm like, yes, I will that. Yes,
Yeah,
good job.
yeah, yeah. I've done the same thing. I've been like, you know what? You did a good job. I'm buying that.
That's right.
But I think that's because I appreciate it because of the experiences that I've had in sales and marketing as well, that I'm just like, you know
Yeah,
what? Good job.
yeah.
But I think you're right. I think what we do have, whatever the, you know, group think that we have going on right now sort of tells us that sales is bad, which is totally disempowering to all of us, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, might as well get into the next topic, which is your guest solo, because I would love to know about all these things that you're doing and find out where to find your program.
Okay. You can go to SheevaunMoran.com, SheevaunMoran.com. And there's a toolkit there. That's kind of for the businessy thing. There's a thing called 5 Essential Energies. Go to 5essentialenergies.com. And that's like a little book. Actually, not a little book. It's kind of a big book about how energy impacts our life. You're a musician. One of our podcasts a long time ago, we had the drummer from, what was his name? Joe something from Aerosmith.
Oh, right on.
And I don't remember his name, but he was on a tour or whatever, and we had him on the podcast. And so one of the first questions I asked him, I said, so how does and this is marketing and sales, just as a relative metaphor, is how do you feel when you're putting this out there to the audience? He says, I never really had anybody ask me that. And so it created this amazing connection. And he said, well, let me think about that a second. And what he said is it goes out and then it reverberates back, and it's giving and receiving and giving and receiving. And he's like, oh, that's a very spiritual principle. I thought, dude, you're the best. And so the 5essentialenergies.com is about giving so somebody can receive in their business. And then there's we've got prosperity stuff, and you can see my books on there. There's a lot. There's a ton. There's a lot of free stuff. If you feel inspired or called to like have a deeper conversation and want to know how to, kick your sales butt and get your business going, then, let us know through that. And one of my team will get back to you and we'll schedule a call.
Right on. So is that Joey Kramer, I think?
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks
Right
for
on.
knowing that. I was like, Joey, yeah, that sounds about right.
That's awesome. So now I'm wondering, what would be like the ideal, who is the type of person that would get the most out of some of your programs?
Somebody who's stuck, they've tried a bunch of things and maybe they've plateaued, and they just aren't like this. They keep repeating a cycle and it's not really moving ahead the way they can sense it can. And that's one type of person. Then the other person is who has a business that's already going, and they really want to make a big leap. I like big numbers. I like helping people get big numbers. Small numbers are great too, but I can take somebody from a small idea to a big one, or from an idea that they already have of money and help them exponentiate that. Like, we had a guy who has a dentistry practice, boring, according to him. And he just told me the other day, he's like, I don't know, in the past year, all your weird, wacky crap actually tripled our sales. I'm weirded out by it.
Wow. Right on. So really,
Yeah.
the whole spectrum, and it doesn't necessarily have to be people who are, entrepreneurial that have businesses, or anybody really.
That's right. Because I say, if you have a bank account, you have a business. So you have to actually know what's in there in order to know what's going to go out. So whether they're stuck inside of a company or whatever's going on. So like the audios were designed specifically for people who are in the thick of fear, worry, anxiety, tension, sleeplessness, a lack mentality, mental clutter, etc. Those audios were designed for that. Those type of people. How to get that next level monetarily. They're 17 minutes long. I learned a lot about studios in that time. That was kind of fun. So the audios are like that. And the books are some are for health and some are for money, some are for spirituality. And, so they have each of their own buckets, and you'd have to look at it. The way we always say, if we do events, is if you feel called to this image and it doesn't make logical sense, that's the exact same thing that you're going to need, even though it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because your spirit knows, right? You're being
That's
guided
right.
towards that area.
That's right.
And it's
Your
your mind's
whole
going to talk you out of it.
That's exactly right. Yeah. We have an Unleash Your Prosperity program in there that is an 8-part series that actually takes people how to sell without selling, even if you only need to sell to your kids. We had a lot of moms do it just to learn to sell to their kids, which is hilarious. So each thing is designed to work with the energy and the mind and the psychology and the emotions, and bring all those together.
Wow. So what about kids who want to sell to their parents?
Right. So I've had clients, I've had kids come to my events. Up till the past 2 years, we used to always have kids come to the event, and they would come to we had this one girl, she was 13. She came to the mic. We always say magic happens at the mic. But she came to the mic and she says, what if I need to get my parents to do something? I'm like, okay, mom and dad, you got to get out of the room. I'm going to teach her something.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
And do you know the answer to that story, the end of that one?
So we did teach her, and it was something they weren't going to let her go and speak at something. And I was like, okay, so say these things and do it this way. And she did, and she got to speak on this big stage.
Wow, that's amazing.
It was
Good
fun.
stuff. So tell me
Yeah.
again how we find all this stuff.
Go to SheevaunMoran.com, SheevaunMoran.com.
Awesome. And do you have like any type of podcast as well?
I do a 2-minute podcast called Driving for Your Success. And one of my clients calls it the benevolent butt kick. And, and so I've got a couple other podcasts that are out there. You can check out, just search me on, what is that, Apple. And they're out there. One's called I Love Energy Medicine Radio, and another one's called Master Your Energy, Master Your Life. I think that's where Joey was interviewed. I don't know if that's still up there. It's a while ago. But yeah, a couple podcasts. Yeah.
I'm going to look that one up because I'm very interested in the music stuff for sure.
Yeah. Well, here's a podcast. It's actually on our blog, and it's called The Tree of Life. And it's an 8-part, I guess I like 8s. It's an 8-part audio of the metaphor of a seedling, of an idea, all the way up to a forest, and how that can take an idea to flourishing into a big, successful, florist.
Love it. Right on. You know what? This has been a lot of fun rocking out with you today.
Thanks.
So thank you very much for that. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks.
And to the listeners, make sure you subscribe, rate, and comment. We'll see you next time on the Work at Home Rockstar podcast.